Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you are watching or listening live or on demand. This is the Makeshift Managers Podcast. My name is Austin. That is not Devin. That is JB Ellis from Sideline Sports. JB, I got you on a short notice over the weekend. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well. Glad to be here. So we're coast to coast tonight.
We are coast to coast indeed. I am on sunny, hot as hell California.
And I'm all the way in Brooklyn. Pretty sunny. The sun's going down, but, it was pretty sunny and nice tonight.
Yeah, it's getting really hot over here now. It wasn't hot for a second, but this week's supposed to be 99 to 100 the whole time.
Nice.
Do not enjoy it whatsoever. But what is heating up is Major League Baseball. We are about halfway through the season. We did a recap about 2 weeks ago, but now we've officially hit the halfway point. Everyone's just about 81 games. How are you feeling about the season thus far?
So being from New York and a Yankee fan, I'm just waiting for October because I said this team wasn't built to win, and they just keep winning. But this isn't October baseball. October baseball is completely different. I still don't see this team winning. They have they've just been filled with disappointment year after year. Garrett Cole's a $40 million joke. He'll fall apart. So I'm the cynical New Yorker with this team. So, and then the Mets are doing well. They got my guy Buck, who I love. So it's hard to root against them. It's just bad. But maybe we get a Yankees-Dodgers World Series and I'll be happy.
That would be wild. I honestly would not know who to root for at that point. I just obviously, if you're not a Yankee fan, you're trained to not like the Yankees, especially growing up. They just were, the Steinbrenners buying whatever the hell they wanted, whenever they wanted. And so it's like Yankees just winning. The Arizona Diamondbacks are the only ones that stopped a 4-peat. They were a menace to society.
I'm telling you, those were some great teams. But what amazed me about them is that they were built from the bottom up. You had your core four that the teams don't have anymore. They had, it's kind of like what's happening in Baltimore right now, where what is it, 9 in a row? Is it? Or am I adding?
8 after
8.
Sweeping the Angels.
Well, they're playing the Cubs next, so it'll probably be 9, and they'll be at 500, and the whole division will be 500 or above. And it's so I'm foreseeing at least one more win for them.
Yeah, the AL East is the Rangers got swept by the Orioles during the week, and every game was a freaking slaughter fest. They just were beating the hell out of each other. And after the series, I was like, we got swept by the fucking Orioles? Are you kidding me? And then they swept Anaheim, and then I felt a lot better about myself.
They're a train wreck, Anaheim. I mean, you have probably the 2 biggest stars in baseball, and they were in first place, and all of a sudden they stopped winning.
Yeah, losing 14 in a row is not a good thing to do usually, but it's the same story every time. It's been wasting Mike Trout's career, and then you have Shohei Ohtani, who I never thought in my lifetime I would see somebody outshine Shohei Ohtani, because if they walk next to each other down like a runway, it's like Trout doesn't even exist. It is wild to me.
And the sad thing is, if you're not really a true big baseball fan, you have no idea who either one was if they walked down the street next to you.
Yeah.
Because MLB does the worst job marketing. I think hockey markets better than MLB.
Yeah, we dove into that a couple times throughout our time here. It's just marketing. The NFL does a great job in terms of, getting sponsorships for players and players doing their own thing and this and that. But yeah, most of the time, these guys in their street clothes, you never know who they are at all.
It's scary. And I mean, baseball has some of the best young stars right now. Toronto with Vlad Guerrero Jr. and basically all the kids there are kids of somebody that played before. They don't market them.
And now Toronto has this young core, and they just got swept by Seattle, and they're faltering. It's a wild season thus far. I believe the Rangers are 3 or 4 games under 500, or somewhere around there.
5 under, but
5 under.
Yeah.
But we're 5 under, and we're still close to the bottom. Everybody is in this range of above 500 or hovering around 500 in the American League. It's freaking wild out here. The A's are just about like the only team you can't count on.
But, nobody's going to their games anyway.
True. All 8,000 people per game, if that.
How is it that they won all those years and they didn't have fans? Them in Tampa, I don't get.
Growing up around these parts, without jumping into another episode about it, it's always been the feeling of, I mean, we just saw what happened. Olsen, Chapman, Manaea, Montas is on the way. All the superstars are gone. And that's just, you can't get attached to this team. Same thing happened with Yoenis Cespedes. Cespedes was like the biggest signing in A's history, it felt like. And they gave him like 3 years, $33 million. And he came out like a house on fire. They traded him for John Lester, and it's been downhill ever since.
But it's got to be frustrating because they got to the playoffs how many years in a row, spending no money. You knew that there was always going to be a team that was a winning team on the field, and they did it with nothing. And the same thing with Tampa now. They year after year they spend nothing, and they're in the playoff hunt, and they're putting a good product there. So you have to look, if the fans don't go, will they ever spend more? It's a tough spot to be in.
In the end, John Fisher needs to sell the team. He's not going to spend whether people are showing up or not. It's been the MO of A's owners for a really long time of just pocketing the money. And it's been a long time coming that John Fisher just needs to sell the team. Somebody who is willing to spend money needs to buy that team and make that team relevant again, because they're one of 3 teams who've never given out $100 million contract. And they tried to like lowball Chapman while he was like coming off an injury. I think they tried to give him 10 years, $180, $190 million, and he was having a down year because of his bad hip. So they tried to catch him early, and Chapman said no.
Yeah. They were saying, I saw an article today that they were talking about the owner of the Warriors was looking to possibly buy.
Yeah, Joe Lacob.
Yeah, that would be
interesting. That'd be wild.
Listen, I would hate to see them move. There's so much history in Oakland with the A's. I get that they can't keep playing where they play. That's not going to work. That field is.
Oh yeah, that stadium is terrible.
It's been past its prime since I'm a kid, and they're still playing there. It's not a place you really want to go see a baseball game. I remember years ago growing up, the Yankees would always have the afternoon games there. The shadows were horrible. There was all that foul territory. And we would always go there or lose, and it was horrible to watch. It was bad back then. It's not gotten any better.
Yeah, the foul territory is wild. I think that's a funny little quirk about the stadium, just because it was built for a dual purpose. But now it's just it needs to be emptied. It needs to be torn down. People are peeing in pig troughs, for crying out loud. Come on now, like it's wild. Okay. So, our little mid-season award show, the 3 main awards that we're going to get into. We'll get into who we think is going to win MVP, who's going to win the Cy Young, and then the All Manager of the Year. That's an interesting one. But, Yankee fan, is Aaron Judge currently your MVP?
As of today, he has to be. 30 homers. He's playing the best. He's hitting the best he's ever hit. He's doing something he hasn't done yet, where he stayed healthy so far. And, until the wheels fall off and he gets hurt, which I'm expecting because he hasn't played a full season that I remember, he's by far the best player right now. And he's been clutch whenever they need him. I mean, it does help that there's not a weak spot in the lineup 1-9 right now. But, I can't think of anybody that you'd say compare to him currently. What do you think?
It's always going to be the conversation of the best player right now, which is Aaron Judge, and then Jordan kind of is sitting here in the back, who I think will be in 3rd place at this point if he stays healthy. But then you have Shohei Ohtani, and Shohei Ohtani is, so far his stats are worse than were last year, and you're always going to say, is this dual purpose guy like always going to win MVP? Because he's doing something nobody else really can. Like, yes, Bumgarner can hit. Bumgarner doesn't hit 30 jacks a year. Bumgarner doesn't bat above 200. He's a pitcher who can hit kind of. Ohtani's a hitter who can pitch really well. So you talk about Judge, he's batting 283, which is close to the highest in his career. He's got 30 bombs, 65 RBIs, 361 on base percentage. He's having a close to a career year outside of his 50-something bombs he hit in his rookie year. I know he missed a couple games last year. I checked, he played 148 games last year. So he missed about, what's that math? 14 games. So I think that's 14, one IL stint for him.
Probably not with days off. It's probably a pretty good season.
Yeah.
But
outside of that season and outside of 2020, back then it was like Judge and Stanton always hurt. Judge and Stanton always hurt. And they've I think Stanton had one stint.
Yeah, it's been a recurring theme. I mean, when you look at average, 283 in 2022 MLB is like 330 back in the day.
It feels like it.
Guys don't hit anymore. You got the shift, you got strikeouts, and home runs. That's really what baseball's become. There's nothing in between.
And for me, like, Aaron Judge is currently the MVP through 80-something games right now, and Shohei Ohtani will always be this phenomenon that I may never see in my lifetime again. Or who knows, it might become the new norm, just give pitchers a bat and have them figure it out. But for me, if you want to make the argument for Ohtani to win MVP, then he needs to have better stats than he did last year. And I just don't think that's going to happen. He's pitching really well, don't get me wrong. He's at 25-something innings without giving up an earned run. He has a 2.44 ERA. He's 8th in the league in strikeouts. He's 8-4. He has 19 home runs. What did I write down here? 54 RBIs, and he's batting 256. I should have wrote down his last year stats when he was MVP, but I don't think currently he's on pace to beat anything he did last year. Maybe he's a better pitcher earned run-wise than he was last year, but if you're going to win MVP every year because you're this dual player, you just got to beat yourself every single year, and I just don't think he's going to do that this season.
But do you think he has a shot ever to win the MVP and the Cy Young in the same year? Because that would be amazing in itself.
If Justin Verlander can do it, he can. Well, I know it's a little bit different when Verlander won it.
Hugely different because he's playing both ways, which changes the dynamic of the award.
Yeah. Verlander won it, I believe, I want to say 2012 when they went to the World Series. It could have been 10 or 11, but no, Hamilton won it in 10. So it was either 11 or 12, but I can't quite remember. And Verlander was just in his prime then. He was one of the best pitchers who's ever stepped on a mound, and he was the Detroit Tigers. And, probably had like 3 at-bats that year in interleague play or something. So, and back then we weren't at the 3 true outcomes quite yet. Baseball eras changed so fast, and Verlander won it in a different time. And the dynamics changed since then. And could he do it? I think he can. I just don't know if he didn't do it last season. I'd have to look at his pitching stats last season. Robbie Ray won Cy Young last year. I think he was a strikeout machine. So I feel like there's always going to be somebody that beats him in one of those categories.
Just wild to think that it's possible, though. I mean, it's almost like, schoolyard baseball, like you're playing wiffle ball or stickball. To think that this is major league level, beyond all-star. This is a star. One of the top guys in the game that could go out there and pitch. You could put him in a game 7 if his team would ever win, or you could have him back cleanup. And either way, you're in good shape. It's kind of wild to think. I never thought I'd see that.
It's also wild to think that when he becomes a free agent, because I feel like he's going to leave Anaheim at this point, the amount of money he's going to get, because you're basically buying a 2-way player at this point. They made a rule after him because he's so special. He's literally this once in a, I wouldn't even say generation. I would say feels like once in a century type player, like once every 2 centuries.
I don't even know, how much do you pay a guy like that?
I've heard upwards of $50 million a year.
Well, if Garrett Cole gets 40 plus, I mean,
And Scherzer.
you know, but I don't know. I'm a Yankee fan. I can't stand Cole, so I'm down on that whole signing. To me, if you're going to get 40 million and you're going to pitch a playoff game, give up a run. You're done. You've done too much. It goes back to when he was with the Astros, when the series they lost, and he went into the clubhouse and he took off the hat before leaving the clubhouse. He took off the Astros hat. He had that weird design on there, and sitting there at the press conference. Wear your team's hat. Stop acting like a baby. Man up. You lost. It's okay. You're allowed to lose. Somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. We know you weren't there with the Astros because everything was coming out anyway. But man up and take your loss and move on. Then don't leave your teammates and act like a child. It happens. You can lose. It's part of someone's got to win. Someone's got to lose. It's the way it is.
Yeah, I do agree on that. National League MVP. This one's a bit more interesting, but I think I got Paul Goldschmidt right now. I don't think anybody's particularly close.
Yeah, he's having a great year, and it's surprising he's good, but he's not the guy. He's not the sexy pick. You don't sit there. You don't see guys walking around and say, I'm going to be a Paul Goldschmidt fan, unless he's playing for your team. There's nobody in any other market that says, I can't wait to see Goldschmidt hit. People want to see Pete Alonso, Freddie Freeman, guys like that.
Even his counterpart on the other side of the diamond, Nolan Arenado.
Exactly. But Goldschmidt is consistently unbelievable. He just does everything. He leads his team. Guys like that, I mean, how can you not love a guy like that?
Yeah, and you never really hear about him too much. Like, yeah, he plays in St. Louis, so he doesn't play for this, unknown team. He's a good first baseman. He was a really good first baseman in Arizona. I mean, he's batting .340 this season, and that's leading the league by like 20-something points. He's got 19 bombs, .340.
Who hits .340 in 2022? Nobody.
Seriously.
That's like 100. I mean, you see lineups that, guys hitting under 200 and they're starting. So .340, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. And he takes his walks. I don't think he strikes out at an insane rate. I didn't grab those stats, but I should. Let's see. Never mind. I typed Paul Gold and then weird stuff came up. So we'll do that another time. The only other person I thought could get close, but an IL stint hurt his chances, was Manny Machado. Mainly because Machado has had to be the heartbeat of the Padres without Tatis, without a corner outfielder, with, the rotation getting beat up a little bit. They've kind of gotten a little better, but Manny Machado, we didn't think Eric Hosmer was going to have the year he's having. He's kind of downgraded since, but Hosmer was batting like .305 at one point. I don't think he's batting that anymore, but I thought Machado was really the only reason the Padres were in it for a second. Who knows when Tatis is coming back? Maybe later this month or in August. But it's just, Paul's better in every category. Like, the only argument I can make is that Manny is more valuable to the Padres, but really we make that argument every single year for a player, and it just doesn't work when the writers get to it.
No, I mean, it's a poor argument that, the guy is more important for the team when you think about, who's just overall better in general. If you're better in every stat, what does it make a difference? That's your MVP. That's the guy, put him on any team at that point, he'd be better. You'd have to at least be able to compare them head to head. And, if you swap them out, Goldschmidt would still be the guy.
Yeah. So I think we both agree on MVPs.
Yeah, he's actually got 75K so far, Goldschmidt. So
okay, so a little higher than I thought.
Surprising. I didn't think it was that high either. But, nowadays in baseball, that's not a lot.
How many strikeouts does Joey Gallo have?
That was last week.
It's just nobody bats an eye at it anymore. Nobody. It's wild.
Yeah,
My
looking
man
at
has 75 strikeouts, and I'm sure his on-base percentage is well over 400.
all right. So the MLB leader is 116. Wisdom on the Cubs. So I mean, and
Yeah, Patrick Wisdom striking out at an insane rate.
he swings at everything.
He does. But you're on the Cubs. What does it matter?
You're not going to be on the Cubs much longer. You keep doing that. Eventually, they have a lot of good talent in the pipeline. They'll eventually be up there.
Yeah. Okay. We'll start in the AL again. Cy Young Award. We did a preview show, and like you said, you don't like Garrett Cole. I couldn't pick Garrett Cole. I picked Dylan Cease to start the season. I've changed that now, but I'm happy Cease is kind of in the mix. I'd say he's like top 5 maybe in the AL right now in terms of quality pitcher. But who do you got in the AL?
I'm thinking Verlander, biggest name, 11-3, 2 ERA. It's really good, and he's got the name, so the writers know the name. It's easy to check the name when you know the name.
Him and McClanahan feel like the only 2 horses in the race right now because they are just McClanahan is mowing people down left and right. He leads the league with 141 strikeouts. He's 9-3. His WHIP is .81. That is wild to me. Like Tony Gonsolin's got .8, so Tony Gonsolin, we'll get to him soon. But McClanahan is mowing people down. But Verlander got Tommy John surgery at the age of 38, came back at the age of 39. Didn't need to. No reason to. He has Kate Upton. He has World Series rings. He has a shit ton of money. He didn't need to come back. But he came back and just started mowing people down like he's always done.
And a .87 whip, so it's not that much higher, And he's the name, so, for McClanahan to win, he's going to have to figure out a way to somehow do something to top it. Verlander has a couple more wins. He's got him a little bit on ERA, McClanahan and WHIP, but not enough in my mind to say people are going to vote him over Verlander. He's having the better year statistically, but I think just the name will take it for Verlander with that. And
Devin says it all the time, and superstars get superstar calls. Like it happens in games, and it happens with awards. It could happen if McClanahan slightly slips up and Verlander passes him up in any category. Like you said, he has him in wins right now. If he passes him up in ERA or strikeouts or even WHIP, then Verlander will be right there. And everyone will be like, wow, Justin Verlander, 39 years old, look at him go, type deal. That's the way it'll be. You're fully right. Here's a close race, I believe. The NL Cy Young. Do you have Tony Gonsolin?
That's a tough question. I mean, Gonsolin, 1.62 ERA. How are the Dodgers? How do they do this? I mean, the Yankees. The Dodgers are buying as many players as the Yankees buy, but yet they're still producing these guys.
They are getting now. Granted, Andrew Heaney's hurt, but the starts Andrew Heaney has had have been really good. Granted, he's only been 3 or 4, but he was a joke. Let's be fair. Andrew Heaney was a joke. Tony Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson were piggybacking each other in the same game, and now they're both have 9+ wins with a low ERA. I don't know how the Dodgers do it. They lost Walker Buehler. Clayton Kershaw had an IL stint, which we all knew was coming. But they're getting production out of Gonsolin and Anderson out of nowhere. Like, are you kidding me? Every time I watch Gonsolin starts, and I don't know when his next one is, I wait for him to implode. And it just hasn't come. He's 11-0.
That's insane in itself. 11-0, 1.62 ERA, just under a strikeout an inning, and a .8 whip. I don't get it. It's insane.
It blows my mind how he's doing it. And I know they've talked about it. He's using a split change more. He's throwing it in the zone more. But it's just wild to me how nobody would have picked Tony Gonsolin to start the season. He had 2 better pitchers in the same rotation who were better odds than him.
That would be if you went to Vegas and put a bet on him. Let me know because I'm following all your picks for now to the end of the year.
For me, though, I really want to vote Sandy Alcantara because he's losing every category. Well, he's losing the ERA category, which kind of matters the most sometimes. But Sandy Alcantara's got a 1.73. He's got 111 strikeouts. But the thing that stands out to me the most is that he has over 40 more innings than Tony does. And I'm not going to rag on Tony for that. It's not Tony's fault that he necessarily is getting pulled early. He was getting pulled early in the season because Dave Roberts was piggybacking with Tyler Anderson. It's not necessarily his fault because they just didn't believe in him like they do right now. But to me, I just think Alcantara is doing more for the Marlins than Tony is doing for the Dodgers. And I just think the innings pitched inflates his numbers a little bit, obviously. Like, he'll give up a few more runs. Obviously, he'll strike out more guys. But to me, what Sandy Alcantara is doing right now is slightly more impressive than Tony Gonsolin.
Without a doubt, he's 9-3 for Miami as opposed to 11-0 for the Dodgers. We could probably be 5-5 for the Dodgers. You know, that's me and you
Yeah.
going out the pitch with that lineup. So Alcantara is pitching in Miami, 9-3. I mean, they're an exciting young team, but they don't have anything close to what the Dodgers have in the lineup. I happened to watch the Dodgers-Cubs game yesterday. Cubs up 5-0 in the first, and we're watching, and I'm like, bottom of the first Cubs, I said, "What? I think this, they're not playing 9 innings. They're playing first to 15 is going to win this game." It was ridiculous. And,
I just watched the scoreboard. I was like 5-0, 8-3. I'm like, damn, Urias got blown up. The Cubs, there's no way the Cubs can, and they blew it up in one inning. They blew it up in one inning.
Scary. It really is.
But and the thing is, Sandy is he almost refuses to turn it over to the Marlins bullpen. So he's easily going to surpass 200 this year. He's at 130 right now. He could get to 250, and that's a rarity in itself. We barely see 200 anymore.
It's a lot of innings. I mean, the only thing that scares me, if you're Mattingly, you want to keep putting him out there all those innings. I know you want to. You want to let the guy pitch what he wants to pitch, and if he feels strong, but at the same time, being that young, you're a young team who's building, and the Marlins are going to be good in a couple of years with the young guys they have. You want to take a chance that, this guy's career, he gets hurt or something, So we'll see how they handle him later on in the year because they're not going to be involved in anything as it comes down to September.
Well, the thing is, with this third wildcard spot, it feels like everyone's involved now. Like, they're only 4 games out of Philadelphia. Granted, they have to hop St. Louis and San Francisco, which I just don't see them being better than Atlanta, San Diego, Philadelphia, St. Louis, San Francisco. I feel like those are your 5 teams that'll be in the mix. Outside of, divisions could change here and there. But Don Mattingly could keep throwing them out there as long as they keep keeping the pace. They're 2 games under 500. It's a weird spot. Like, I know you don't want to burn through your young rotation because that's kind of what they've built in Miami. They have a outstanding rotation. They just need to score more runs and get a couple better relievers here and there. But it's weird. It's weird watching teams now because it feels like everyone's in contention. Like, I really want to go out and snatch one of those Marlins starters, get a good guy with solid control. But why are they going to give anybody up? Everyone's in contention now.
Yeah, the trade deadline is going to be a very strange time this year.
Who can you really name as sellers? Washington, Cincinnati, Chicago. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to sell anyone because they just have a purely young core. Chicago has nobody to sell. The A's, probably Montas if he becomes healthy. Washington will trade Nelson Cruz and Josh Bell, and that's about it. There's not really a whole lot out there, but it's weird now because all these guys with team control were are more appealing, which didn't happen 10 years ago. It was all about the 2-month rental. Get me to the World Series. That's not it anymore. Guys are thinking years down the road now.
Yeah, especially like you said with the 3 wild cards, it doesn't take much to be in contention next year. You could build, even though you get the 2 months this year, you want to be back in the playoffs next year as well. So,
yeah, so to be, I think that's probably one of the closest races for me is NL Cy Young for sure. If Sandy keeps doing what he's doing and Tony doesn't give up any runs, then that'll work.
yeah.
Manager of the year. We'll start in the AL. It's obviously Aaron Boone. No, I'm kidding.
You were right. I mean, 61 wins. They're gonna challenge the Seattle team.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, I'm still not sitting here and saying anything for October. We spoke before we started. To me, this team was a playoff team before the year started. I was thinking a wild card. I thought Toronto was going to sneak up and win the division.
Me too.
But it doesn't. If that happens now, I'd be sick to my stomach. But still, I think come October, Garrett Cole's going to be Garrett Cole. They're going to stop hitting because October baseball is not, July baseball, May baseball. It's a different game. It's played differently, and I just don't see this team winning.
Yeah, the biggest thing for the Yankees is that most of their rotation is on innings limits. Tyone's been getting beat up. Nestor's been kind of getting beat up lately. Cole and Montgomery are really the only guys who have thrown over 150 innings over the past couple of years. Like none of the rotation is really set to go 162 games, 35, 36 starts. So that'll be an issue for them. I know nobody really expected this. Nobody expected this out of the Yankees. 61 wins is wild at this point of the season. But I don't know if you could. I feel like manager of the year is going to go to whoever can get their fringe playoff team in that third spot. Seattle. I can't believe I'm saying this. Baltimore.
Baltimore's a great story. I mean,
yeah,
8 in a row, game under 500. They have a phenomenal young team, but I wasn't expecting it at this point. I was thinking they're another 2 years off before they would be where they are now.
Yeah, they've definitely pushed their agenda a little quicker than we all thought. And their rotation, like you look at the box score, it's not that great at all, but they're making it work. And 8 in a row will put you in a good spot. If Baltimore gets the third wild card spot, you have to give it to Brandon Hyde. And I don't think it's particularly close at that point.
Without a doubt.
If Seattle made it, here's my problem. Here's my problem with giving it to Scott Service. Scott Service doesn't have the box score, does not have a good record as a manager. They haven't made the playoffs in 21 years. They almost made it last year, one game, didn't make it. They started off really slow this year. They've won 8 in a row. They're back over 500. I believe they're tied with Toronto after sweeping them. So they're tied with Toronto for that third spot. I just can't give it to Scott Service because they retooled so much in the offseason that you kind of felt like, okay, they're not better than Houston. We all know that. We all know Houston is the powerhouse of the AL West. But because they retooled, it feels like they should be in the wild card spot at this point. It's time to break the curse, but is breaking the curse going to propel Scott Service into that spot?
Yeah, I don't think that he should be manager of the year if they make a third wild card spot. To me, I don't think they're that bad of a team to be in the third wild card area. I don't think that they're bottom basement dweller team. I think they have a lot of decent young talent. That's where they belong. They shouldn't be winning the division. The Astros are clearly better, but Scott Service definitely doesn't belong in that particular area. I would actually, I kind of think Minnesota, Rocco Baldelli, the fact that they're winning the Central over Cleveland and Chicago. Chicago was supposed to be a really good team this year, and they're struggling. And Uh, the Guardians are doing nothing. And Minnesota wasn't the favorite there by, if at all. So I can see Baldelli being in contention.
Yeah, I think that's really my top three is Hyde, Service, and Baldelli. Maybe Francona if the Guardians were able to turn around and win the division. If they make a wild card spot, I don't don't think that's enough for him. But of course, if Brandon Hyde even sniffs the playoffs, it's not particularly close.
Oh,
Even if really they finished, I don't know,
if they're
winning
close,
season, a winning season.
yeah. I mean, depending on what the third wild card record is, would depend on if he gets a contention or not. And it's still a lot of baseball to be played to even say that. But for mid-year, I definitely think 43 and 44 right now, he's got to be in contention for it.
Yeah.
Even Alex Cora is another one just out there. I mean, Boston's playing better than anyone thought. They're, looking at it, they're on paper before the season starts, probably fourth in the division. You got the Yankees, Toronto, and Tampa. They're all on paper better. Boston's playing really good baseball. They had a great series against the Yankees over the weekend, splitting it. So got to give Cora a lot of credit as well.
Yeah, after an abysmal 2020, he comes back from suspension, turns the team right back into a playoff team. There is something about Alex Cora that definitely sparks that team for sure. I think he's a great manager, despite whatever people may think about him personally for the whole cheating stuff. He's a great manager, and it's shown in Boston for sure.
Yeah.
Last one, then we'll get on out of here. The NL Manager of the Year.
So that's a tougher one in my mind. I mean, I'm not a fan of Dave Roberts. I don't think, the Dodgers should be winning that division. San Diego and San Francisco are both, decent teams, so I'm not shocked with where they are. The Mets, a lot of people were talking about them before the season. Atlanta just won last year, so it's hard to say them. Maybe St. Louis, but, with their corner infielders, they're a decent team. This is a tough one. How do you decide?
For me, you look at it. It can't be Dave Roberts. It just can't be. They've won for 10 years. I can't give it to Dave Roberts. Yes, he's done well. He's gotten good stuff out of random guys, but I can't hand it to him based off, the Dodgers were the World Series favorites. And it's not his fault, but it's just how it's going to be. Buck Showalter, great manager, but a lot of money's put into the team as well. Not saying Buck's a bad manager at all. I think Buck's a good manager, and we saw the Mets last year. We saw what could happen. He could be in contention. I would put him maybe in the top three. Craig Counsell, Milwaukee's done it. Milwaukee is supposed to win the division. He's a great manager, but I don't think he'd win it. Like you said, Brian Snitker won it last season. If San Diego, I don't think they're going to win the division at this point. I picked them at the start of the year, but I feel like injuries are just tearing that team up, and not having Tatis, and I don't know any trades AJ Preller can make at this point to boost the team. I think they should just be a wild card team, but I think Bob Melvin should be in that conversation, mainly because of how badly Jace Tingler put that team in the dirt. And it just kind of goes to show that Bob Melvin does have something to put that team in a good spot for sure. I'm just going down the line.
It's a tough race. I mean, it really is.
If Philly makes the playoffs, could you give it to Rob Thompson?
Turn the team around if they got rid of Girardi. It would be weird, though. It really would.
That's where I have the problem. It would be weird.
I don't know. Honestly, I want to say Buck, and that's a Yankee loyalty thing, but I don't really like any of the choices.
Yeah.
Sitting here, I mean, I think if Dave Roberts, if they were doing what the Yankees were doing, they had 5 more wins, I would say Dave Roberts, because a 700 winning percentage is phenomenal. Even a $200 million payroll, that's not easy. Baseball, playing every day, it's ridiculous to win that kind of percentage of games. But I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking that may be your best. You might have just hit it on the head. Philadelphia, Rob Thompson, because that's impressive how he turned the team around. And nobody else stands out to me at all.
Yeah, like Oliver Marmol out in St. Louis. St. Louis has been a playoff team. Gabe Kapler, the San Francisco Giants were going to regress. They were not going to win 108 games again. So you realistically can't give it to Gabe at this point because he's going to be worse than he was last year, technically, which isn't his fault.
No, but
even if Miami made the playoffs, I'm not giving it to Don Mattingly.
no,
I honestly believe Don Mattingly shouldn't have a managing job in Miami at this point.
they just stuck with him. No, there's something to be said about loyalty. Yeah. If he can turn it around in a couple of years, and they make the playoffs or win a World Series, it's great to stay with them. If it doesn't happen as that core gets older, then they should have done something different. But we'll see that in a couple of years. But they weren't going to win now anyway, so it doesn't matter staying with them, not staying with them.
Philadelphia holds a 1-game wildcard lead over St. Louis. So if Philadelphia makes the playoffs, give me Rob Thompson. I think that's what I have to go with.
I hate to say it. I'm either going to say Buck or Rob Thompson. I can't see anybody else, because to me, St. Louis, with those two corner infielders, with Arenado and Goldschmidt, it's like you were already built in with a team that should be in contention. Milwaukee's supposed to be in contention. Those two teams are supposed to fight out for that division. Dodgers are supposed to win their division easy. They're doing it. San Diego and San Francisco are supposed to give them a run for the money, but they're not supposed to be better because they don't spend as much. And the Mets spent all this money. If Buck can finish out and hold off, Atlanta and Philly, maybe it goes to Buck because the way the Mets have collapsed the last, how many years before he became the manager. Maybe he has that heads up because of that. But otherwise, Rob Thompson for turning Philly around is a great choice. But an interim manager winning manager of the year, that would be wild.
I don't know if that's ever happened. I'll have to look that up after the show. That'd be an interesting thing for sure. But yeah, I think you make great points about Buck. I think Buck has a good head on his shoulders. He has a good team around him. And we've always seen the Mets have a good team and then just, like they traded for Baez last year and all that and just completely collapsed. And
so the first thing I ever covered when I started doing a podcast and a show, I actually got to cover the Orioles spring training the year after Buck was gone. And talking with everyone there, the reporters that were there and the new coaching staff, and Matt Blood, who's the player personnel guy, when they talk about Buck is great for a couple of years, which he's older now, so a couple of years is huge. After that, what he does wears on everybody. And he doesn't coach up the young guys as much. It's not as much teaching. I was shocked when I saw that from spring training, all the drills that they were doing and different things. I'm watching, I'm like, these are pros. They do all these drills. Because it was the first time I actually covered, in person spring training. And, they were doing basic drills. And I'm like, really? I was impressed. And I'm like, they're really good at what they're doing, but they're seriously doing like fun drills like that? I've never seen that. I couldn't imagine, major league players doing drills. I'm like, wow. But from what they said and, talking to the different reporters down there, Buck just sort of ground down his players. And after a while, it's just hard to get them to produce. And, it makes sense. He's just a very hard worker. He's, very serious and to the point. And after a while, you're not having fun doing that. So I could kind of understand that.
Yeah, he's pretty much surrounded by mostly. I can't think of a rookie on their team. I'm sure they have a rookie or two on their team, but it's mostly veterans. It's a team built on veterans, and so I can get why they can rally around Buck and kind of have Buck as their guy if he has that kind of mentality for sure. So with that, it's getting close to 6, and we both got to 6 my time, 9 your time, but it's getting close to end time is what I should say, so we can get on out of here. But first and foremost, I want to thank you, JB, for talking with me for these last 45, 50 minutes on such short notice. I appreciate it a lot.
Anytime.
I know you have Sideline Sports. You guys have a ton going on. What would you like to get out there?
So Sideline Sports every Tuesday, 8:30 on at Sideline Sports One or at JB _ the program. Every Tuesday, we have shows 7 nights a week on at Sideline Sports One. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook. Got a bunch of different things going on. We're about to get our Roku channel up and running. Sideline Sports and the Sports Arena are both on DBTV at dbtv.tv. Definitely check us out there. A lot going on. 7 nights a week, we have a Baltimore Oreo show, that a Cubs show, and they're playing tomorrow, so it's going to be interesting to see what the Oreo show said tonight. Oh, what a show! And what I say tomorrow in the Cubs show. After game 1 of that series, but rarity eventually play. We'll see what happens with that. But a lot going on at Sideline Sports. Definitely check it out.
So yeah, follow at Sideline Sports One. Follow at JB _ the program. They have a lot going on, as you can tell, 7 days a week. So you literally don't miss a thing. You only get me once a week, so get over it. But that'll be it for us. At the Makeshift Manager Podcast next week, we will be starting football divisions, 8 weeks, and we will finish up the Monday before week 1. We are starting in the West, but I don't know what conference yet. AFC or NFC. We usually save the best for last. Usually we start in the East, but we're going to start in the West due to some scheduling towards the end. So, because nobody cares about the NFC East. Nobody.
Hey, I'm a Giants fan, but usually the last 5 years, what I've been doing, and I'll deny this, so it's not really on live anywhere. About November, Thanksgiving, I pick a new team. Picked the Bengals last year. Came so close. So close.
Good thing I didn't tell JB I was a Cowboys fan before the podcast.
I gotta go.
He might have dipped. So, with that being said, Devin's not here to tell you peace, so that'll pretty much be my job at this point. So, once again, JB, thank you so much. Could super appreciate you coming here on short notice. And with that, how does he do it? Is it peace? I'll see you guys.